Hey there, and welcome to One Email, Two Takes. I'm Will Allred. I'm one of your hosts here. I'm usually joined by Christina Finsap. She's out this week. Quick synopsis on the show. I'm going to showcase an email that was either sent to me, I worked through with somebody else, and provide two different takes on how to rewrite that email. And so this week, I've got a great personalized email, but it lacks something that I really love to see in email writing, and that's flow. It logically progresses from the opener all the way to the finale. And so before I get into that email and share my screen, wanted to give a brief introduction in case this is your first time to the show. I'm Will Allred. I'm one of the co-founders at Lavender. We help sellers write better emails faster. Our Chrome extension is used by thousands of sales reps. And so we see millions of emails every single month. And that gives me really great data points to talk through as I walk through people's emails and try to give them advice. So let me share my screen real quick and I'll walk you through this email for this week. So as you can tell by the title, it's personal, but it lacks a lot of flow. Hi, William. I'm really impressed by the AI at work in your email assistant. It's amazing that after a few weeks of use, Lavender is already proving to be such a time saver for you. It's awesome to see so many people on the receiving end of your marketing. By the way, this is such and such at such and such company. I'm reaching because we specialize in helping companies like Lavender build a sales pipeline and continuously acquire new customers. Are you finding it hard to acquire new clients? If you're looking for new ways to improve this, you're not alone. 50% of startups are forced to close in 5 years through a lack of customer acquisition. At Company, we've developed an outbound sales strategy that opens up new opportunities consistently. Our process includes getting to know your business and creating a personalized customer acquisition plan that meets your needs. Would you have some time this week or next to chat about how we could optimize Lavender's revenue? Now, I got this email and immediately threw it in a Google Doc. So it's like, okay, we've got a couple things to talk about here. One is this personalization is way too long. It's way too much. The average amount of time that someone's going to spend reading your email is around 11 seconds. And so that 11 seconds is eaten up by this entire personalization front. The other thing that stands out to me are things like introducing your name and where you work. While it might seem like a good idea, we're taught a lot of these things within cold calling best practices. But what's good practice for cold calling doesn't necessarily translate well to email. If you're on the receiving end, this immediately stands out as like a mental spam filter red flag. And so if I see this, I immediately know I'm about to get pitched and it's just not something I'm looking to get into. One of the things I thought was interesting is the grammatical breaks. Like there wasn't necessarily the best grammar throughout it, which I didn't necessarily notice the first time I read through. And I think that's actually an important point to make is grammar is not necessarily the most important thing on the your list of priorities. If you can break from grammar rules and make something easier to comprehend, do it. There's nothing that's stopping you. There's no rule book that says you have to be picture perfect. Like a good example here is Lavender is already proving to be such a time saver for you. The use of you might keep my attention, whereas saying me might make it more them centric and I might not pay as much attention. But when you're scanning through in 11 seconds, you're not going to pick up on all those grammatical breaks. The main piece of feedback that I'd have for somebody who wrote this email is it's too dang long. And the reason it's too long is all this conversation about what they do and all the conversation that this sales rep is having about what they do is, one, the reason it's so long, but two, it's the reason that the flow is so awful. So you'll notice it kind of like makes this nod at like what we do and all this stuff. And then they're like, great, I got that off my checklist. Let me go pitch you now. And that's not how we should be thinking about personalizing an email, right? It should tie in. Every sentence should lead to the next in a very logical progression. So the way this works is like, hey, I really like your software. It's great that you've done really good marketing. By the way, here's my sales pitch. And that's not exactly how we should be thinking about selling. It's not how we should be thinking about how we pitch in general. In reality, a cold email shouldn't really be a pitch at all. It should be more of a conversation starter. The digging into how the process works, going through the outbound sales strategy. Those are features. You shouldn't be talking about those within your cold email. Now, the other thing that I thought was interesting is this paragraph right here. If you're looking to improve this, you're not alone. I love the phrase, you're not alone. I love the thinking behind you're not alone, but the execution here, again, is something that needs to be called out, because as soon as they say you're not alone, it goes into some like weird stat line about startups are forced to close because of a lack of customer acquisition. It missed the punch. The thought process behind saying you are not alone is actually pretty brilliant, right? Because what you're trying to do is showcase to the other person that it's okay to be open. This is a safe space, which will elicit a lot more response. But in this case, it doesn't necessarily hold true to what it's trying to do. I typically, if I'm going to use a phrase like this, I'll tie it to a case study. I'll say something like the team at such and such was really surprised to find out that, whatever it is that they'd be surprised to find out. And I use a version of this in my writing, and I'll go through it in the second example, but let's walk through some rewrites. So my first take is more of a conversation starter. Hey, Will, I've been using Lavender for a few weeks, really impressed by your email assistant. I found you through your LinkedIn marketing. I imagine many others do the same. With inbound marketing working so well, is outbound a big part of your process today? Very simple, very easy to respond to, very quick to read through. The flow makes a lot of sense. It's like, okay, I found you through your LinkedIn marketing. I imagine that's a big part of what you do and how you go to market. Is outbound a big part of your process? Simple conversation starter that shows me, okay, this person actually saw what I do and they're asking a genuine question, in which I'm probably going to respond because it's personal, but also elicits this nod that there might be something helpful on the other end of it. Now, the other thing to note is a conversation starter like this, really effective for LinkedIn. If you think about the difference between a LinkedIn inbox and like an actual email inbox, is a LinkedIn inbox is inherently more social. And so you can get away with more conversation starters when you're doing your LinkedIn outbound. Now, the second take I took here is a little bit more of a traditional cold email. So, hey, Will, I've been using Lavender for a few weeks, really impressive tech. I found you through your LinkedIn. With inbound working so well, I imagine outbound hasn't been a huge priority. Many founders have told us the same. As I'm sure you know, outbound is the key to predictable success. We help founders ramp up their outbound, worth learning more. I think what's key to noting between this email and the email before is how little I actually talk about what that seller was actually selling. Your outbound really shouldn't be about you at all. And that's the whole point of why we personalize messages and why we reach out the way we do. Because I'm just trying to get a sense for, is this something that's on your radar? Is this a priority? Because if I show you that there's something that I can do to solve your problem, you're much more likely to respond, especially if it's a problem. Because if I just launch into some sales pitch without you having opted in, you're not in the right frame of mind. You're not in the right content, or you're not in the right, you don't have the right context for a conversation like that to start. You're just having to absorb a pitch on the fly and then try to translate it back to the challenges that you have and what you're facing. So I approach cold email, I approach personalization in a very particular way, because I'm not actually here to pitch you. I'm here to start a conversation and a dialogue around a problem that you have. Because if you don't have a problem, I'm never going to be able to sell you anything. So some of the thought process in both of these emails is really focused around making sure that flow makes sense, right? I don't just randomly break from personalization and start into a pitch. Even with inbound marketing here, right? Inbound's working well for you, I imagine. Based on that, I'm going to jump to the conclusion, and it's easy to follow why I jumped to the conclusion that outbound hasn't been a huge priority. Then I provide credibility for why I jumped to that conclusion, just so you don't think I'm just showing up here for the sake of it. Hey, many founders have told us the same. It's a simple way to nod that you have customers that are in the exact same frame of mind that I am. As I'm sure you know, back to the point of, if you follow me on LinkedIn, right? We tend to not give our buyer enough credit. So instead of saying like, okay, so I say, as I'm sure you know, one of the things that they say up here in this first email is this like 50% of startups are forced to close in 5 years. They're talking at me as opposed to talking with me. You're much better off having more of that. Hey, listen, I'm sure you know this already. Outbound's the key to predictable success. It's much more likely to keep me reading, keep me from being like, who is this joker? But then it flows into, okay, outbound's the key to predictable success, which is what they really wanted to tell me. And then we help founders ramp up their outbound. That's the only real pitch within this email. Worth learning more. Because if these 1, 2, 3 sentences resonate with me, I'm likely to say, yeah, tell me more about it. And because it's personalized, it just boosts that odds by about 2x anyways. So a couple takes on a very long email. You'll notice both of them are much shorter now. If you're looking at best practices, this is not it. The emails that are getting the most responses right now are written between 25 and 50 words. And that lines up really well with that average reading time of 11 seconds. The other thing to consider is reply rates. Where they really start to drop off is right after that like 30-second reading time mark, which still doesn't buy you a lot of time. So yes, you have like on average 11 seconds, but you'll start to see those reply rates really plummet after like the 75 word mark. So keep that in mind as you're writing your email, because if you're starting to go past that, you're probably just talking about yourself too much, or you're over personalizing it, right? Like that opening paragraph in that email had a lot going on where it really just needed to say, I saw your tech, I found you on LinkedIn, and then move on from there. And so just take the time to really streamline what it is that you're trying to say. Ask yourself the question, why? Why am I putting this in the email? Does it actually serve the purpose that I'm trying to accomplish? But hopefully you found this rewrite helpful. If you haven't already, subscribe to Sales Hacker. I'll be back every week. But until next time, appreciate it, y'all.